Ever since his release, I've been a Neuvillette main, and I've published several guides on Tactor on how you should build your Neuvillette. And today we're going to be taking a look at Neuvillette team building, as well as building your own Neuvillette. And follow me along this Tactor guide I'm going to make. And so, first of all, let's talk about his artifacts. And there's really only one right option, which is going to be Magische Hunter, because it gives a lot of normal and charge attack damage, and you really like this charge attack damage percent buff of 15%, and you like the 4-piece effect bonus, which is essentially 36% free crit rate, since your HP will always go up or down if you play him right. And as for substats, you want to go HP. I'm sorry. You only want to go HP, EM sometimes in vape teams, and even there, EM isn't that great. So I would still take HP because there are some hits that you are not going to vape, and this is where HP percent is just always better. So I would go HP, then either hydro damage or HP percentage. This actually works very well because you don't have to go hydro damage always, since if you run him with Farina and Zelona and Kazuha with, for example, the signature set of each of the characters, you will have a lot of elemental damage percentage from Farina's burst. You have it from scrolls on Zelonin, you have on Kazuha the damage. So this is where you kind of have too much hydro damage at some point, where going HP percentage can be better if your artifact is on similar level, or maybe better, maybe a little bit worse, and it still be better. But I would take a look at the Gadget Optimizer, and this will decide if you should go for HP percentage or hydro damage. For example, if you also run with him with a weapon like the Witsit, and you are willing to retry until you get the elemental buff, and at R5 you get 96% hydro damage bonus essentially, then you want to go HP percentage. For his circlet, you can go crit rate or crit damage, like the classic options, or as well go HP percentage. Since Neuvillette scales pretty well with HP, and you really want him at around like 40k HP, this is like, with this build you usually get this one pretty easily. So this is for his signature set. This is the best by far, and it's not a bad set to farm, especially if you have Farina, because Farina can use the Golden Troop set, and then you can farm for many characters at once. Sorry, this is main stats, substats, crit damage, crit rate, which is better than HP percentage, which can be better than ER percentage, but like first you kind of want to have ER percentage, right? ER percentage until requirement. Sometimes you don't need that much ER if you, for example, run Favonius on your Kazuha and Favonius on your Farina, for example. So then you actually have a lot of ER already. Like this part you have covered, but you really want to have like your burst always, and there are different calculations for his ER needs. For example, if you have Prototype Amber, this will lower his ER to like 20, maybe 30% sometimes, like lower, and running double Hydro or running Favonius, as I said, will almost make it not even needed that you actually have to farm ER. I think if you run one of this optimal team and run Favonius with him, and even go Prototype Amber, since or you have the signature, then you don't need to have extra energy recharge, and I think 0 extra ER can work perfectly fine. Okay, but this is for like most teams that don't actually run like Farina or don't have Fischl or any Favonius for particle generation. Then you want to have maybe 130, 140% ER. And EM in wait teams, and after that flat HP. So first alternative is going to be Wanderer's Troop, because Wanderer's Troop actually gives 35% charge attack damage. But this is a viable option if you don't have the resin to farm Majesty Hunter set, and you already have a functional Wanderer's Troop build lying around. Okay, so let's take a look at other sets, and they aren't that great, other than Heart of Depth works, because not only do you get the 2-piece set effect, but here once again you get 30% charge attack damage, which is similar to this one, and this is by far better than Wanderer's Troop because you have almost constant uptime on it with his skill cooldown. But once again, I know I'm kind of glazing it, and there are ideas like Blizzard Strayer if you get the crit rate, but I wouldn't even consider this. And there's still one piece artifact set I would take to consideration, which is Nymph Stream, because you can get a decent amount of hydro damage bonus. Can run 2-piece actually. Use this out of the way. Let's move on to weapons. And Thrilling Taste only works with Skirk. It isn't bad because Thrilling Taste actually has HP percentage, which is still less DPS than like Prototype Ember, but you have this 48% attack buff, which you can use to quick swap into Skirk, use Skirk burst playstyle, and then swap out again, or like do the same with Escoffier, where Escoffier does a lot of damage, or Fisher for example. This is essentially okay if you have a C0 Nivlet who just doesn't deal a lot of damage, goes on a budget build, and you really have a decent Skirk burst build. But in this team, where you have Skirk, who is like very strong already, you don't really maximize the potential of Skirk, and essentially you can still run TTDS with someone else, for example Charlotte, which will do better because Charlotte not only gives TTDS but also a lot of healing, which can buff Farina. Right? Like, can do Farina's buff, and then there's more. But this is like, if you're on a budget, you will take this weapon. You can use Ashgraven Drinking Horn, just is an HP stat stick basically, with a bit of damage. Can deal 40%. This is AoE of your HP, and since you have like Nivlet like has 40k HP, and on R5 this actually 80%, you will do 32k damage with one basic attack, or like with a charge attack, whatever. This isn't bad, but if you think about it, over 15 seconds, this is like 2k DPS extra. Let's say in an AoE scenario where you have to hit 3 opponents and you actually trigger this AoE, this is 6k extra DPS, which is actually around a 4% damage increase for some very low invested teams. Right, this isn't bad, and the weapon itself, the main stat, HP, isn't bad either. So this has like the same amount of HP as Prototype Amber. Here. This one is actually pretty decent. You get 18. You get 32% charge attack damage bonus, which is essentially like having an artifact set, kinda. But you also, the important thing is that you also get the ER requirements for some teams, And this will essentially be really nice if you have like low energy. If you have no energy and you need the energy and you don't have any characters who can battery Neuvillette, this weapon can work. And as I said, it's a budget weapon. It's not that great. Because if you need energy, I would take Prototype Amber. Because Prototype Amber not only has the same amount of HP, you get a lot of energy, like pure energy. You get like 24 energy on refinement level 5. And this will reduce his energy recharge issues by like half of it already. Because you also get more HP and 4% of HP to all party members, okay? Let's think of it, R5, it's doubled, so 8% HP. Every 2 seconds, triggers 3 times. So you get 8 times 3 times 3, which is 72% HP healed over the party-wide healing, which is 72 fanfare stacks for free now. So this is actually quite a lot. This is 72 out of 200 for free. Since you have C0 free now, right? This is a third, or even more than a third, of the requirement you have to heal. And then, of course, you have Frena's self-drain, which will also give half of it. And then you have Neuvillette self-draining himself and healing himself, which actually gives you full fanfare stacks. Of course not for the first attacks, but overall you will get a lot of value of it. Yeah, of course the Witsit, but this requires a lot of RNG, and I am a Witsit user. And if you actually need that little bit of edge and you're ready to retry over and over again, the Witsit can be very competitive to the Battle Pass option. But it's very hard actually to say that this weapon is better than Prototype Amber, except you have enough energy anyways, right? Than this weapon. But otherwise this is very competitive. You can also find Lost Prayers. And Lost Prayers is decent. You have crit rate obviously, which is very nice, and you actually get a lot of elemental damage bonus. And let's say it's like at R2 or even at R1, let's say it's at R1, you will get about 30-ish, 32% hydro damage bonus max, which is worse than Witsit with Red Anshi, and it needs you to stay on field for 16 seconds, and until then VV buff is about to expire. You want to recast Farina skill soon in like 4 seconds. You only gain the elemental damage bonus at the end, and at the start it just doesn't really work, so that's not really good. But it's fine if you don't have any other options. So premium options, Tome of the Turn Flow is the best by far. As you can see, you get energy, 8 energy, and you it will help you a bit with the energy issues, not as much as his Prototype Amber option, but the signature option is very great because it gives a lot of crit damage, 88%. You get a lot of HP, and you get its buff, which is extra charge attack damage of 42% at R1. This weapon isn't that great, it's just a stat stick and it gives HP. As you can see, you will be getting HP increased by 32%, which is insane, by the way, right? This is, with the crit rate and HP percentage, this is actually very competitive to Tome of the Eternal Flow at R5, because it's like doubled on R5 and you have like 60%. This is why Sacrificial Jade is actually better than Prototype Amber. But this will make your rotations shorter to 10 seconds, which isn't bad because Neuvillette can swap in and swap out essentially. After we took a look at his artifact options and his weapons, we're going to take a look at 4 potential team archetypes. I don't know, archetypes? And first archetype we're going to be taking a look at is his hyper playstyle. This team is of course using Neuvillette. We're using Furina for his best slot option. We are going to be using Celonin and Kazuha, and this way we have a healer with resistance threat and buffing. We have Kazuha with grouping, buffing and resistance threat. We have Furina with buffing, damage and even more buffing, basically battering Neuvillette's energy recharge and giving Hydro Resonance, so buffing him even more, and Neuvillette doing all the damage. So next team we're going to be creating is Neuvillette Electrocharge. So essentially this is nothing else but the previous playstyle, but instead of doing like Geo or Dendro for example, we actually go with such team. This is Lunar Charge. And we should write comments about this there, but we won't. And the idea is that we have a sub DPS, a second one, other than Furina, which can be Inepha, which can be Fischl, like Taser, which can be Auron. So this will stagger enemies, and Taser is very efficient because enemies can't move a lot, so they aren't too aggressive with you, and they won't kick Neuvillette around as much as like he usually gets kicked around doing his charge attacks if you don't have his C1. And why Inepha is so great here is because she provides a shield. You can also run Beidou in this slot, and with her burst she can also provide a shield, but 80% energy cost can be quite tough. So next one is going to be Vape. Not Vape, Freeze. We're going to take a look at Neuvi Freeze, not at Neuvi Vape. So first of all we have Neuvillette as always. Then we're going to still have Furina. As you can see, Furina is his best teammate. Except for certain characters. And this is the team I take for Neuvi Freeze. You can replace Citlali with Skirk. This way you have the team I mentioned earlier, where during Neuvillette's downtime you can use Skirk, for example either burst playstyle, to dish a lot of damage and then quick swap back to Neuvillette and deal damage, or you still use Skirk normal attack playstyle and deal a lot of damage, but this will shorten his rotation by a bit. Right. But this still works because usually you have, as you can see in the other teams, you have Kazuha or Celonin or both to shred resistance, but in the freeze team Escoffier shreds resistance by 55%, and this team is great because Citlali buffs hydro damage and cry damage, like you have two sub DPSs here again. And this is also similar to the hyper playstyle where Neuvillette gets a lot of buffs and deals a lot of damage, especially with Citlali holding scrolls. And for the last team, this is Neuvillette. Usually I would say Hyper Bloom, and I think I would still say that Hyper Bloom is one of his best options if you don't have a lot of investment into Neuvillette. Um, but I think Hyper Bloom is worse than all the other 3 playstyles here. The other playstyle which will get competitive is like in 10 days, which is going to be Neuvi Bloom with Lauma. Then actually the team is probably the best team for Neuvi, if not for the Hyper playstyle on certain investment. But for Hyper Bloom teams, it's pretty simple. They kind of look like this. And on Nahida, honestly, in my opinion, the best weapon here is going to be Prototype Amber. It works. Alright, great. Like, this is low budget. Let's take a look at great characters, okay characters, and maybe characters. So, let's take a look first on the animal characters. Those characters I won't put here are probably not good enough. For example, Ether, Chaska, Farazan, Aoife are not that great. Jean can be great. Like, I think Jean is maybe even okay. Kazuha is great. I said earlier. Lanyan is maybe. Net is grouping. No, I wouldn't consider this really. Sucrose is a maybe. She can be okay, but like Kazuha is so much better than Sucrose in this team, and Jean can be a healer for Frina, while Sucrose is maybe okay in babe teams. This grouping is nice, but this like dependent on the content, and Neuvi doesn't really need that much grouping. And yeah, the rest does really work. Let's take a look at the Hydro characters. Barbara is okay. Barbara C2 with Neuvi C1 is actually a great combination because you get 15% Hydro damage bonus from it and Hydro Resonance if you don't have any other characters. This isn't that bad, but it isn't that great either. This Dahlia is like, he only is a Hydro Shielder, which is okay, but you can have better characters. You can have a better Electro slot. Nilo is okay. The Bloom teams are decent, and with Lauma, this is the best option maybe. And Child is great because there's a team called Child Prison. Let's order them a bit. Yeah, I think that's a great order already. And his passive will buff Neuvi's charge attack by 7 to 14%. Right. Xingqiu is a maybe. He's great because he has interruption resistance and he provides a lot of energy for Neuvi, but otherwise he isn't that good. Like, Yelan is similar, but Yelan actually also gives a buff, but those two are just maybes. Zhongli is, I would say he's great, but he is not better than Child. This resistance threat is nice. He can run Scrolls or Petra, so that way he is useful, but otherwise he doesn't do much better than other characters. Kachina, similar, just gives 28% more buff than Zhongli, but no resistance threat and no shield. And Zelona is great. I would say she's a bit behind Kazuha, even though her buff uptime is higher, and Zelona herself is better than Kazuha most of the time. Kazuha just works so well with Neuvi, especially with grouping. So I'd say that this is also very fine. But both are very similar in roles. Charlotte is okay. Freeze is always great. And she works very well with Rina. So there's that. Silali is great. She buffs Freeze. And she can hold scrolls. So she's better than Child. Diona is okay. Something like that, yeah. Diona also heals. Cry application is okay-ish. It's enough for Neuvi to sustain freeze, and shield is nice. Coffee is great. Because she enables another playstyle, and she's just that good. And you don't need 4 characters essentially. You can also run Kazuha as your like Neuvillette, Farina, Escoffier and Kazuha, then you will lose a lot of resistance threat from Sitlali and not Sitlali from Escoffier. But your Kazuha will compensate for that by quite a lot. You will still get 40% from, like, if you have 1000 EM, 40% elemental buff from Kazuha, and you get 3 stacks of his of Neuvillette's passive for triggering 3 different hydro reactions if you have his C1. So then it actually becomes better. Where were we? Ganyu no, Kaya no. Leda is okay. She's similar to Diona, but Diona is a bit better just because of Farina. That's just how good Farina is. And Chi-Chi I won't consider, even though, like, she also can be considered healer for Farina, but Skirk, she's not a great character. Her, like, that's one of the greatest teams, honestly. But you can run Skirk by herself, and she's probably similarly strong, maybe a little bit worse than that specific team, DPS-wise. But then you have like a very great team, and one not existent team, or just 2 very good teams, right? But that's fine. Danger options, most of them don't work. Baiju is great. He's better than Zhongli because he's also shielded, but he can buff Farina, and the chorus will do a little bit of damage, but that's fine. Collet, no, honestly, like, Collet can be a maybe. Same with Emily in Burn Wave teams or Bloom teams here, Collet, but I wouldn't consider it. I would consider Kirara because of her shield, but I think Kirara's shield is it's still worse than Lanyan or Layla. Suddenly this works, right? Shield is just very nice and important. And Nahida is an okay teammate. She isn't great, but some of her teams are really good. And Yao Yao, I'm very... I don't know about Yao Yao because her heal is nice. Her application is bad, but it's enough, essentially. But I would take other characters from other elements instead. Beidou's okay. First of all, Electro Charge is great, and she can give a shield, and if you have a high constellation, she is very good in AoE scenarios, but otherwise, like in single target, she actually falls off quite a bit. Fischl is also okay. She's almost great, but the problem with Fischl is that you need to have a lot of energy recharge, which isn't that hard to get because it's fine since you run Taser electric charge teams where you generate a lot of particles. So this is where Fischl is actually very great. So she's good for Neuvillette, she does good amount of damage, but if you have her C6 just won't trigger a lot. So that's fine. Yansan doesn't work because tech buff. Nefa is great. I'd say she's better than Sitlali just because Lunar Charge is so strong. But this also doesn't work with Kazuha, so some cases this like is interchangeable. Still, I think Nefa is so strong because she's also a healer, deals a lot of damage, and her teams are fun to play. Sarah, also healer. She's better than Beidou. She's like here. Electro Charge is just one of the best teams for Neuvillette. So next, we have Lisa. She is better than Beidou. She's better than... Honestly, I think... Wait, what? I think Fischl is better than Nahida. Lisa is... Correct. Good. Beidou's maybe a bit too high. And Skirk maybe is a bit too low. Because Skirk's damage is actually so great. Yeah, something like that. But for free-to-play options, maybe this, yeah. Okay, where were we? Around is great. And this is, first of all, pure bias. but scrolls plus night zone mechanics plus being a bow character, he's just so versatile for Neuvi. You can fight versus multiple bosses, and that's just how good he is. And he's a great battery and can hold Favonius, like this, that. Same with Raiden. And Uron is better than Baishu in my opinion. And Raiden is very solid here. In Hyper Bloom teams, her rank goes up a bit. In Electro Touch teams, she's still very great. Maybe I put Fisher on here, on par with this, right? This just needs more skill, and this is comfy and it will always work, but it's also great, always great. And yeah, that's it. I won't consider Miko. I'm sorry. Miko is maybe a maybe, but nah. Amber can be a maybe, depending on the boss, but otherwise no. Alekino dual DPS, I'm not a fan of it. Bennett is a no. Chevy is a no. Dia is okay. She can almost be great because she's similar to Zhongli, just interruption resistance. But there are burning teams like Dia and Nahida and Neuvi, something like that, with maybe like Kazuha or Child, and you actually have a lot, like maybe not Farina, because Farina will vape all your attacks, and then Neuvi has nothing to vape. But like in their teams, Dia is great. Look, no, Dominion, Klee, if you have a C2, then she's a maybe. Mavuika is great. She's not bad in Freya, not bad in Kaza, not in this, not bad here, not bad in Elefa, around here. Hey, just let me move it. Okay, something like that. That's great. Nice. So, Xiangling next. Xiangling is okay. She's not the greatest, but her vape teams do work. So, something like that. Shen Yanfei. Yanfei is similar to Klee, but Klee is a little bit better with application. And that's it. And yeah. Now outro. That was my 5.8 Neuvi guide on